Hello everyone. Today I'll be going to a local historic site named Desoto National Memorial. So be prepared to learn some local history, my people. So it's your boy Landon on the MCAT 4 bus. Now I'm at the downtown Brayton station and I'm on board the bus that goes to the beach. Now I booked an Uber to get to the Desoto National Memorial. It'll be here anytime soon, but I'll let you know when I'm on the Uber. On the way there. See ya. So you know, I got into the Uber.
So 8300 the Desoto Memorial.
Yep.
Manatee County.
See you guys at the National Historic Site.
What?
I'm a vlogger, okay? Just so you guys know, I'm at the DeSoto National Memorial right now. So be prepared to learn some history. Just to break it up to you guys, the visitor center was closed abruptly due to the hurricane. Well, due to hurricanes, but it's under renovation. So you know, I learned something new. You know, Hernando de Soto had an expedition from Cuba, and he died in Mississippi.
Thank you. It's a regular pig, but
almost stopped to eat lunch. So we'll continue the trail.
You come in down here when you came in?
Yeah. He got sick and died. Stevens. I am the lead park ranger at Desoto National Memorial, lead interpreter. Desoto National Memorial is a unit of your national parks, established back in 1948 to commemorate the Desoto Expedition of 1539. We talk about many subjects related to Desoto and the history of this area. But first thing I'd like to do is ask, where are you folks from?
Buffalo, Minnesota.
All right.
I'm from here.
All right.
Cape Coral.
Cape Coral. Ooh, travel a long way.
Tennessee.
Tennessee. Any specific part or just the whole state? You live the whole state? Knoxville. All right. I am a 7th generation Floridian, so take a picture of me. I'm like Bigfoot. My family came in right before the American Civil War in about what was called the Armed Occupation Act of 1843 is when my family started to settle across the river over there. So we've been in this area almost as long as DeSoto. But, and as you live in an area long enough, this is the theme of where we're going to roll right into my little interpretive talk, is we talk about myths and legends, correct? When you have something that's got a little bit of space and time between it, myths and legends like to pop up, and that's what the National Park Service is here for, to crush those myths and legends into the ground and give you the cold, hard facts. Like I said, we're kind of killjoys when it comes to that, but that's what we do. Because, you know, George Washington really didn't chop down a cherry tree or throw a quarter across the Potomac. And even though Honest Abe was kind of honest, he was still a politician and still lied. So, those are just some current myths. But other myths in this area, like the legend of Sarah DeSoto, which was a fake myth created by a guy who owned a department store and became a legend in the area to protect the area against hurricanes. Well, we saw how well that happened about 2 years ago. I haven't heard about that myth since then, so I'm kind of happy about that one. But other myths and legends crop up, particularly about the DeSoto expedition, besides Old Sarah, which I'll share that myth with you later. But we're going to dispel at least 3 myths and half-truths about the DeSoto expedition for you. As you walk through the park, you've probably, if you've walked the trails, you've read the signs, which gave you the kind of the history of the park, the history of the DeSoto expedition, and what it entails. So one of those myths I always like to dispel first off is, why did DeSoto come here? Anybody? Come on, there's Conquistador.
To get gold.
Get that, exactly. That G word, one of the 3 G's that conquistadors were always here for. Gold, he was here for gold. Well, that's not really a true statement. Even though gold is great for the conquistadors, Desoto is already one of the wealthiest men in Europe when he comes here. He had taken part, he was about 4th in command of the Pizarro expedition to crush the Inca Empire. From that expedition, he gained 13,000 pounds of gold, silver, and gems. Do you think he needed any more gold? No. What Desoto wanted was something that was denied to him his whole life. Something that if you were raised in Europe, your little brother there would probably be the next Desoto because he's second born. Because firstborns get nothing. Firstborns get everything. Secondborns get nothing. And Desoto happened to be the second-born son. So that meant he had no land. He had no power in Europe. And even though he was richer than most of the monarchs of Europe, the poorest landed noble could say, I own property, you don't. So Desoto comes here for one reason, power and ownership. If he were to plant a colony in the land of La Florida, he would then gain the viceroyship, the rulership of the land of La Florida. And when you think of, well, Florida, well, it's just a state. No, La Florida went as far north as the Carolinas and far west as Arkansas and Texas. It comprised the entire southeastern United States. That was the land of La Florida to the Spanish. Now, the second myth we have is, this was whose expedition? What countries? We need some audience participation. Spain, thank you. There we go. Spanish expedition. Well, that's also a half-truth because the ruler of Spain was not just the king of Spain. He had a title called Holy Roman Emperor. So what's the difference between a king and an emperor? A king rules what?
A kingdom.
A kingdom. An emperor rules what?
An empire.
Well, he rules kingdoms. He rules kings. And that's what the Emperor Charles V was. He wasn't just the king of Spain. He also ruled over the king of France, the king of the Netherlands, the kings of Italy, and he also owned the papal states. So he ruled over the Pope in Rome. He was one of the most powerful monarchs at his time. So when Desoto comes to Charles and says, hey, Chuck, I want to come to La Florida and conquer this unconquerable land for you. Well, Charles spread the word across the empire. So Desoto's expedition was not only comprised of Spaniards, he also had German mercenaries. He had Welsh longbowmen. He had Italian craftsmen, French merchants, people from all over the Holy Roman Empire. So this leads into the last myth. And usually this myth is asked to me, this question and myth is usually asked to me in many different ways, but it's quite the bedrock of what we talk about here. Is Desoto killed all the Indians, right? And I said, well, that's a half-truth as well. Because you have to think about weapons back in the 16th century and the population of native people that lived in the American Southeast. Historians put the native population of the American Southeast about 30 million people in the 16th century. So if Desoto wiped out 30 million people with a sword, that's a feat. That doesn't happen at all. And he does it quickly. Well, Desoto himself doesn't swing the arm that kills millions of people, but he brings the one device that does. A weapon of mass destruction. A horrible, horrible, horrible weapon that you probably have in your refrigerator today. What do you think it is? No, not a virus. Not a poison. How many of you are like bacon?
Pig.
Well, you just ate a weapon of mass destruction. Pigs have responsible for more human deaths than all of our wars combined. 100 years ago, a swine-borne illness wiped out 30 million people. 100 years ago. Actually, it's a little over 100 years now. It's more like about 110 years ago. A thing called the Spanish influenza was a swine flu contracted by American soldiers in the slaughter yards of Chicago and transmitted over to Europe. After the Spanish influenza ran its course, 30 million people were dead. 500 years ago, Hernando Desoto brought the first pigs into North America. Those pigs spread when they got away from the Spanish. They went into native villages, tore up their crops, multiplied, became feral. That's where we get the basis of our Arkansas Razorbacks today. And they spread disease in their way. That's how diseases moved into areas that the Spanish never went into. Within 150 years, that native population of 30 million was reduced down to 98%. So from 30 million down to a couple 100,000. So next time you pull that bacon out of your fridge, give it a wary eye, because it's killed more people than anything else we've ever produced. So leading into those 3 minutes, we're going to turn it over to my friend over here with the weapon.
My name's Greg. I'm a volunteer here at the park, and we'll just kind of talk quickly about the progression of weapons that we have here on the table. Starts off with probably a rock over there around the fire pit.
First, the earth cooled.
You know, that would be your first. You grab that and use that to club somebody or something that you want to eat. The next item would probably be a club, something similar to like this, mangrove root. They found a shape they liked. They carved it out. Dug a pit, build a fire over top of it, which will harden it, make it a little lighter. I think that could do some pretty significant damage to somebody if they really wanted to. It's kind of the precursor to some of the other bludgeoning type weapons that the Europeans would bring with them on the expedition. The next iteration of that, of weaponry, would be probably a sharp stick. You know, these happen to be spears. They have an iron tip. But even just a sharper stick where they can poke at things. Again, the problem with that is you're still pretty close to that thing, and if that thing's got teeth or claws, it's going to come back at you. So then they say, well, we can throw it. And so they would use, throw this into whatever they wanted. But you can only throw so far and throw so fast. And so somehow somebody figured out that if they apply physics to this, they can throw it farther and faster. It's called atlatl. It's been used in every continent in the world, with the exception of Antarctica, because penguins' arms aren't long enough to make it work. But these date back tens of thousands of years. The Aboriginals used them. The Native Americans used them. Ponce de Leon was killed by one of these down in Fort Myers. When they hit him in the thigh with a poisoned dart. Now remember how it traveled when I threw it. I'll try to demonstrate on how much additional force you can add just by adding the atlatl. So it can travel considerably faster. I'm not very accurate with it, but faster and more force. Very effective weapon. People can become very good with it. The natives would have their native bows. They would give these to the. How old are you? 9. So 2 years ago, you would have got your first bow from your mother's uncle, maternal uncle, and you would have started to practice with this, and you'd get very, very good. You'd roll rocks across the ground, and you'd pick off those rocks, and you'd become very good. By the time you're 15, you're expected to help provide food for your community and defend it if somebody attacks it. So you become so good at this, you're going to hit. You're going to fire 20 arrows a minute and hit 95% of what you're trying to hit. So you're a very good archer. Archery is a lifetime skill. Same thing with the English bowmen and the Welsh bowmen they would bring with them on the expedition. They learned this skill over a lifetime. So at 20 arrows a minute versus some of these other weapons and at long ranges, this is probably the most effective weapon that the natives had against the Spanish when they came. So the Spanish bring kind of the next iteration of a bow with a bow on a stick or a crossbow. Now, the advantage of this is I can pull a couple of guys out of the pub that are somewhat sober, and in about 2 hours have them very proficient with this type of weapon. So it's very easy to use. It's a weapon of the masses. They used it a lot in the European wars because they could just go into a town and say, come with me, you're going to learn how to use a crossbow. And a few hours later, they've got a legion of crossbowmen. Some of the other problems with this, though, its rate of fire is slow, its distance is less, and when you go to load it, I can't see anything around me, so I'm kind of blind and I'm exposed. And then there'd be some other, probably a young squire or something that might be holding a shield over me if there's enough extra people to do that. Not very effective. Again, it's slow to fire. It's not always the most accurate thing. It flies around. It takes a little bit to get used to. So that's the crossbow. Probably the most fascinating weapon the Spanish bring with them is the arquebus. An arquebus, or a matchlock rifle, was brought on the expedition. Now to have one of these made, they're each made kind of to your own specifications. You need to go find 3 craftsmen. First craftsman you go find is a clockmaker. That clockmaker is going to make what's called the lock. This is what the lock does. Everybody ready?
Ready?
Whoa! Cool!
Isn't that exciting? That's
Yeah.
what the lock does. There's springs and levers and things like that inside here, so your clockmaker makes that. Then you would go find a carpenter, and that carpenter is going to build you the stock. Then you'll go find a blacksmith, and he'll build you the barrel to your specifications. You know, how big a diameter, how long, those kinds of things. So you get the lock, the stock, and the barrel, and you have a whole gun. So if you've heard that term before, lock, stock, and barrel, it gets you the whole gun afterwards. So the other problems with this weapon is it's a smooth bore. If I'm shooting from here to the fence, I'll probably hit what I want. If I'm shooting from here to the flagpole, not going to hit it. The ball's a little bit smaller. It's going to rattle around when it comes out. When it goes out, it's going to go up, down, left, right, wherever. So it's not the most accurate thing. But what it does provide is it provides Desoto a way to convince some of the natives that he's a god, because he can control thunder and lightning. And that's what he uses that as an intimidation factor.
We're going to do a rate of fire. How about that?
Sounds great. We haven't done that one in a while.
That's because I've been away.
Alright, so as they get ready, we'll talk about the different advantages. Greg is getting ready to put in some 16th century day glow hearing protection. Basically, what we're going to do is demonstrate Dan, who's going to casually fire his arrow while Greg begins to get ready to fire one shot from the musket arquebus.
Competition here.
Now, before we get started, some of the steps and processes that Greg will go through, he's going to start getting ready to prime in a second. And for safety reasons, we're not going to load real paper or real lead. We're going to load paper. So, get ready? Okay. Mark and set, go. I guess they're starting right now. Greg is getting ready to prime. And he's loading the charge powder, which is a coarser grade of black powder. It's a coarser grade, so it has a bigger boom. And again, for safety, we're loading paper. And just like a modern musket muzzle loader, bring it all home. For safety reasons, I'm also holding the mat. That's what he's getting ready to test and set right now. And in just a few moments, when he's ready, we're going to cover our ear. Get ready, cover your ears.
Dang, that was loud.
You have another shot?
Nope.
What? Well, then I'll just walk closer and finish them off.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I was taking my time. So, an actual trained native archer can fire 15 arrows in 30 seconds to his 1.
We didn't make it.
And I could be a little faster with more practice and things like that, but still, I'm not going to get any more than 2 off in a minute. And by the time I get the first one, I'm going to be a pincushion. So it's going to be hard to do the second. Any questions on any of the weapons we've got up here? Processes? Thank you so much.
Just so you guys know, I just got finished exploring that site, the Desoto National Memorial. It was worth it, but is something that was very interesting, you know? See y'all when I get home.